Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
A Paralympic athlete and MBE awarded disabilities campaigner says she was forced to wet herself on a train because it did not have an accessible toilet. Anwafula Strike says she was left humiliated after the 3-hour journey on a cross-country train with no working disabled toilet. Despite her embarrassment, she's decided to go public in the hope it will bring change for disabled people. Well, we can talk to Anne now from her home in Harlow in Essex, and also with us in the studio is Sue Bott from Disability Rights UK. Thank you both for joining us. Anne, tell us what happened then. You were on the train and realised that there was no working disabled toilet for you to use.
Yeah, I was coming from a very, inspiring meeting, and as you do when you're traveling, you definitely want to use, you want to relieve yourself. And I was just appalled that when I went to check, when I wanted to use the toilet, it was all boarded up with a big sign, out of order. And I asked, the ticket master if they could help me. She couldn't do anything because she was also helpless. She decided that they would get me off at the next station to see if I could use the toilet and then get me on board again. But when you got to that particular station, there was nobody to manage the place. So there wasn't even anybody to come up with a ramp and help me. I had, some passengers who were willing to get me out, but then she also realized that even if they took me out, I would still need someone on the station who would have access, who would help me to get across the other side to use the toilet and bring me back. So the next stop for me was Peterborough. And between that and Peterborough, I just couldn't hold anymore. I had to do it. Humiliating, but I had to do it.
And how did you feel through the whole process where you were in the hands of others desperately needing help, and there was really nothing that they could do?
Do you know, when you're in that situation, that is when you really feel disabled. I rarely feel disabled because I like to get about and do things. I would like to be in the community to support others. But it just when that happened to me, I just realized that sometimes when you're different, you are so isolated, the world disqualifies you from having a normal life. It's as though, when you have a disability, you don't deserve to have equal rights in the community. And that just really, it actually knocked my confidence.
Yeah, I mean, when you were actually on that train, you're talking about it now, which presumably isn't an easy thing to do, but you're talking about it to raise awareness. But when you were on that train, you must have felt very vulnerable.
I felt very vulnerable, and I felt really exposed. I felt humiliated. I just felt like I was in this big world that nobody was taking notice that I existed, and I needed to use a toilet. We are talking about a basic need, basic right that a human being deserves, and I don't think this should be happening in this century.
So when did you decide that you wanted to actually start to talk about it publicly?
When it first happened to me, I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror because I was so embarrassed that I'd actually wet myself. And one day I woke up, I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, I just realized that I am not the only one who's experiencing this. I know so many other people with disabilities are going through different and very difficult issues. And I say to myself, well, I've got to speak, and I'm just hoping that when, by me coming public, it's going to end all these things we go on about self-censorship, and we should sort of just realize that when bad things are happening to us, we need to have a voice, we need to speak, because when that was going on the train, when I wet myself, I didn't have a voice. It was all taken away from me. And I feel that I now have a voice to speak against it, because I shouldn't sort of just sit and lie in the bed and want to have a dignity when it was all taken away, during that incident, and allow other people to suffer the same.
Stay with us. I want to bring in Sue Bott from Disabled Rights UK. What do you think about this, Sue?
Well, I'm appalled. I mean, I think you're a very brave woman, Anne, for coming out and explaining what happened to you, and I really hope that you doing that has a lot of good. I'm sure this has happened to disabled people in the past, but they haven't felt confident or been able to come and speak publicly about it. Unfortunately, I think that we still have a kind of tick box mentality towards disability and access. So, we tick the box that the toilet is there on the train. We don't think about how we need to consider that it's working all the time.
And it takes someone like Anne talking about the impact of it not working for people to actually really truly understand why it is so important that those facilities are there and usable.
Well, absolutely. I mean, someone who doesn't use a wheelchair, it's fine. You can get off at the next stop if you're caught short and the toilet's not working, and you can go and sort yourself out. But Anne, of course, doesn't have that option. But I think
so that is what I would have done. I would have crawled to get to the next toilet. But unfortunately, as a wheelchair user, you don't have that luxury because the aisles on the train are quite tight. And I agree with what Sue is saying. It's just sort of tick a box. The sad thing is that we have a legislation that is supposed to protect disabled people to have equal rights with everybody else. But the problem is that I don't think these legislations are tough enough. Companies and organizations are actually getting away with a lot. In the process of ticking a box to say that we have a toilet, we have a ramp. So what is the point of having that when it's not functional, when it's not working?
One anonymous texter has got in touch today. I was on a train myself yesterday. Unfortunately, I'm not disabled, but over the loudspeaker on the train, the person said the disabled toilets are out of order. I found that outrageous and something that should not have happened. Cross-country trains have told us that what happened to you was clearly unacceptable, and they are investigating. What reaction have you had since speaking out, Anne?
I think everybody is outraged. We're having so many people coming out now and speaking about what they've suffered under the train companies. And it's not on. We are talking about a basic right. And honestly, I've not had any apology or any communication from the cross-country group. And I think to me, it's not just enough if I ask them to give me my dignity back. But I think what I would ask them is, what are you going to do about this?
What do you want to happen now?
I would really like to call on change. We need to see change happen, really. I think, companies and organizations should be fined if they don't sort of really adhere to the legislations. They need to pay huge fines when these things happen. The sad thing is that when people come out and complain, you are easily sent maybe an apology letter and a £10 voucher. And honestly, that is not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for changes. I'm looking for, when people with disabilities are traveling, using public transport, we need to be treated as equal members of the community. So the changes need to come in pretty soon, and such companies should pay huge fines.
Mazi has tweeted to say the train should have been withdrawn. Anne is so courageous and has nothing to be ashamed of. Thank you both very much. And there has been a brief statement from Cross Country Trains, as I mentioned, saying that what happened to Anne was completely unacceptable, and they are investigating. They say clearly the circumstances of the journey were unacceptable. It's the first time they've been aware of such a situation ever happening on one of their trains. They say we are still investigating how our established procedures for caring for a customer in a wheelchair could have failed so terribly. We are determined to learn from these events.
I've been getting away with it all